Hello and welcome to the Albion Obsessed podcast. You join us on the back of a action-packed Albion week. We've been high, we've been low. The roller coaster of emotions being a Brighton fan at the moment is very fun to ride. Let's see who we've got on the show today. We are welcomed by Mr. Andrew. How are you doing, sir?
Yeah, not bad. Just not bad at all. Yeah, lots to talk about, but yeah, all good.
Lots and lots to talk about, but we haven't left it 2 weeks this time, so there's not as much to talk about as there was before. We are welcomed for the first time on the podcast by Ian. Ian, mate, how are you doing, sir?
Yeah, good, mate. I'm excited to finally be on. It's been a while in the making, but yeah, all good. I'm excited to dissect these last few games anyway.
Yeah, as you say, you've got a fair few notes, which we will delve into, I'm sure. But before we go into any of the normal show stuff, I just want to also welcome the live chat today. So if you've got any questions or if you've got any thoughts as we go along, please do pop it in the chat and we'll try and interact with you as much as we can. Ryan out saying, still doing your nails. That is a reference to when I went on to an Aston Villa podcast and my daughter had done my nails because why not, eh? And Michael is in the chat as well. Hello to you, sir. Ian, we've got 3 questions for you, mate. As we said before we went live, we like to sort of paint the picture of you as an Albion fan. So first of all, when was your first ever Albion game?
So I didn't go to an Albion game until we were in the Prem. I'm not a glory hunter, do not panic. Just relocated from Northern Ireland back in like 2019 or something like that. So yeah, my first Brighton game was a Brighton-Burnley game, which my cousin took me to, which ended in as a 1-1. I think Morpay scored, and then I can't remember who scored for Burnley, but it was in that last minute. I was like, welcome to the Premier League again. So yeah, it was a pretty fun game.
Yeah, exactly that. What better way to introduce you than a boring draw with Burnley? That is just fantastic.
Yeah, exactly.
So obviously with the relocation, this is a completely different question to the one that I was going to ask you next. Why Brighton?
So I mean, I grew up in Northern Ireland, but family have always been from this neck of the woods, if that makes sense. So sort of, did the who do I pick? And my mum was like, I'm not going to persuade you. Choose whoever you want. You got to support them. And I went, well, you know what, Brighton. So here we are.
There
Down
you
the
go.
line.
And then you were cursed with Brighton Hove Albion.
Yeah.
So, brilliant. Obviously there's been a lot of players that you've watched over the short time that you've been a Brighton fan, but who would you pick out as one of your favourites?
I mean, obviously, Donkey's up there, isn't he? Because he's just captain leader legend. He's epitomises what the football club's about. But if we're going sort of a player we've truly signed, I'd actually go with Veltman. I know he has only been given his flowers recently, but yeah, I reckon he's just. I call him the GOAT, but he's also,
Yeah, I mean, pound for pound, probably one of the best signings we've ever made. Just so reliable, and was worth every penny of the 900k I think we spent on him. So crazy when you get such a reliable player for that little. Again, our recruitment doing bits. And as you may or may not know, on this podcast we are absolute fanatics of football shirts of all kinds, but of course the main ones being Brighton Hove Albion football shirts. So what's your favourite shirt that we've worn over your time?
It's got to be one that I've got to sort of see. So I'm going to say, the Hyper Turk, probably most notably the Why'd You Let It Bounce from Morpay. That one is it's one of my favourite colours anyway. But yeah, Hyper Turk, a little bit of sort of grey on the arm. It was just mint on it. So
yeah, it was a beautiful shirt, and of course has become a little bit of a staple in training gear like you've got on there.
Yeah,
and we've got a Hyper Turk sort of side to our new shirt and a Hyper Turk tick as well. So hopefully that is something that is incorporated in Brighton shirts for many, many years to come, because I think it just adds to our blue and white just really, really nicely. So yeah, that's Ian. Then as an Albion fan, as I said, we'd like to paint that picture. But let's start by talking about a more positive note, Andrew. You went up to Nottingham. What was the feeling like before the game? Obviously, last year was a result that we won't be mentioning ever again. But it was good to put that right, wasn't it?
Oh, absolutely. You know, despite the home fans kind of screaming at the top of their lungs at the result from last time, you kind of have to let them get on with it. And this is a new game. This is different players, different. It's just a whole completely new style of play and everything else. I think we actually did. To be honest, we did really well. To be honest, despite all the attention and the hype of, going up there and what's happened before, I think we did pretty well. To be honest, we dominated that game, and you know, they gave us a little bit of a scare in between that game. But I think we actually, at first off, I think we were brilliant. We just, on every chance we had, we could have done far better. But you have to look at it and say, we got 3 points out of it, and that was the most important part.
Yeah, exactly that. I think Ian, the squad could have been a little bit daunted by the fact that they got to go back to the City Ground on the back of that 7-0 last season. But do you think that the players' mentality is always just wanting to put things right? I think that the bounce back ability of this squad has always been quite good, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, you sort of briefly touched on it there. I think Fabian, since he's come in, is definitely sort of had that level of FU, if you like. I mean, don't let one thing become a habit. I mean, and I think, to be fair, I know they had definitely had their chances, but I reckon our clean sheet was absolutely worth it. I mean, Bart didn't have to do a lot, but when he did have to be called upon, he was absolutely phenomenal. And that foot save he made, what was it, sort of 60th minute or something like that? That was probably just epitomised Forest. It was like, it's just not your day. We're going to hold you to it, and that's your own problem to deal with.
Yeah, exactly that. And as I said to you guys before, I didn't quite have the graphics prepared for three of us today, so I've had to go with an old one of having Bart Verbruggen there. But I think, as you said, Ian, it's quite poignant to have him there because his improvements this season has been excellent. And even in the Aston Villa game, we'll talk about, he came up with some really, really good moments. Andrew, really important for Bart to get another clean sheet as well. Obviously, Dunkey and Van Heck are a big part of that. So yeah, what did you make of the defensive performance? Because you say that there were moments where we had to be really resolute.
There were a lot of moments where we had to hold it, and because the amount of pressure they put on us was phenomenal. To get a clean sheet out of it, take 3 points away from it, and for every member of that team to have a really, really good game. From the start of that game, the first 20 minutes of that game, we were just incredible, and it just goes to show that we can really, really do it. We've just got to be in a good place for each game, and the mentality of each player has got to be ready for the game. And there's no doubt in my mind that as soon as they enter the pitch for that game, their heads are switched on. You would hope, and the Forest game proved a lot.
Yeah, exactly that. Obviously, Rhino in the chat is saying we should have been at least 3 or 4 up after 20 minutes at Forest.
Yeah.
It was an excellent start to the game, wasn't it, Ian?
Yeah, I was literally going to say that, getting that second goal definitely probably made the result look more convincing, and it should have been, as we said, like 3, 4. I think it was 9 shots in the first 20 minutes or something like that. So, when you have it like that in a ground that we just lost 7-0 last season 2, that I think really shows the mentality that we went into with it. I was like, we're not gonna let this same thing happen, and if anything, we're gonna try and do it back to you and see how you like it. So I mean, obviously, De Kuyper got his goal in the end at the first half, but which was well, it was well taken. But I think Wells's movement was the pivotal part to that goal being so well taken as well.
Yeah, definitely. I've always rated Welbeck's ability of sort of dragging, even without his, blistering pace that he used to have. He can still drag players, and he still attracts that attention from defenders to have De Kuyper and, when we've got Matoma and Minte to run in behind and really capitalise on those chances. Andrew, there's been a lot of change, obviously, at Nottingham Forest since last season with Sean Dyche coming in, and he's always been a manager that we've sort of struggled against. So was you sort of worried in the fact that we were sort of facing him, or did you see it as like a fresh chance to just face up against a different style of play and a different team?
I think when you go up against him, when you go up against any team, if it's a manager that we've struggled against before with a different team, he was manager at Burnley at one point, and we really, really struggled at that point to be able to get a result. But he's gone to Forest, and this was a new opportunity for us to be able to just turn the tables and do something that we know as Brighton fans is possible for us to do. We may fall down, but we certainly get back up again, and we try and turn it around, and we try and get a win out of it. And that's exactly what we did. Fell at the first hurdle, gone back, and we've got a win out of it. So just goes to show how strong we can be.
Yeah, exactly that. And we'll talk about also how strong we can be in terms of the Aston Villa game, because there's a point that I want to raise that's sort of grinding my gears a little bit. But we'll come on to that as we go on. Doom in the chat is saying, what are your thoughts on the Said El Mala links? We made an offer in the summer that was turned down. I don't actually know much about the player, to be honest with you, Doom. So hopefully Dagan's got him in his transfer tracker, and we'll know more about that as and when that happens. Michael saying resolute is a good description and a great dummy by Welbs. Incredible movement from him. What an amazing moment, Andrew, for Seamas to get his first goal.
He's an incredible player. He might be young, but incredible player. He's got so much talent to give. That's very, very quick thinking of him to come in and just poke that ball home when you're coming in between a defender and a goalkeeper, and it's he's seen the opportunity, and he's just got to be honest, it was that quick. You have to take a double take on it, because it was just, I'm right behind the goal, and it's just, you're looking you're kind of looking left and right, and then suddenly you're looking in the middle, and this ball's rolling in the back of the net, and it's just kind of, hang on, where's that come from?
Obviously, we'll talk about Simas's injury as we come on to the Aston Villa game, but Ian, he's got such a big frame for such a young guy, isn't he? He moves well. He reminds me a little bit of like when Evan Ferguson burst onto the scene, maybe with a little bit more pace about him, and done really well before he got injured against Aston Villa. So a really gutting moment. I guess we'll talk about the injury now for him to have a sizable layoff, it's being reported.
Yeah, I mean, as you sort of said, it was a bit like Evan Ferguson when he broke onto the scene. He's a sort of very well-built young lad. Sort of got a old school vibe, if you know what I mean. He's sort of the sort of Jermaine Defoe, if you like, if you want to compare him to like a Premier League striker. That not necessarily the biggest and 6'6" kind of thing, but he's an absolute tank, and will just, as we saw at the start of the Villa game, he'll just run through defenders quite literally sometimes. And hopefully the injury doesn't hamper him too much like it did with Evan, which I'm sure we'll discuss in a second because he might come back. You don't know, but he's got that sort of very much young, ready to prove himself as I am a Premier League player, not a potential wonder kid. I am a player now rather than just one for the future.
Yeah, exactly that. Michael saying, I think he's more mobile than Evan. Yeah, I would agree with you there, Michael.
Yeah.
Just that sort of powerful stature that he has, I think, more than anything reminds me of Evan. But of course, Andrew, now we're having to deal with the fact that our second striker option will possibly have a sort of 3-4 months on the sidelines. Obviously, we're approaching January, and the club don't really like to do anything in a January window. So I was on BBC Sussex earlier, and I was asked the question of what stopgap do the club put in place? Do we bring back Evan Ferguson, or do we go and buy someone, or even loan someone for just the second half of the season? What do you think the club could do to sort of ease that pressure on Danny Welbeck, because he can't play every game?
No, he can't play every game as much as he's as fit as he thinks he is. That puts a lot of pressure on one player to play, a full 90 minutes for the rest of the season. Whatever the club do, this injury that Seamas has got, we don't know the full extent of it, but we know it's going to keep him out for some time. So we've just got to wish him well in his speedy recovery, and it's like Fabian said in his press conference, they will adapt to what they need to adapt with the team, and they will deal with it behind closed doors, and whatever he puts out on each game will be the team that he wants to go out and win, because that's all he wants. He wants to be able to win games. That's what he puts into his players every time. And whatever happens after that 90 minutes or so will be what we get.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. Right now, and Michael saying that they like the look of Babis, and maybe he'll get a look in. Ian, obviously, he scored his first goal against Manchester United at Old Trafford, which was obviously great for him to get off the mark there. But from what I've seen of him so far, he's not unafraid of the physicality of the Premier League, is he? And he sort of takes it in his stride. So I think there is a lot more to come from Babis. And obviously people forget that he was the most expensive of the two. So do you think maybe we can expect more to come from him?
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely more, what do you call it? Well, he's not, doesn't look as strong as he is. Maybe maybe he'll build into that just naturally with Graham sort of being around the team and stuff. But his strength is something that I took from him before. Like, you took out his his goals and stuff. He's got fantastic hold up play, and that's really pivotal. So I think we sort of used him almost as a second striker or behind Welbs at times this season when he has played. So it might be nice to see a bit more of him maybe up front and using that sort of goal scoring prowess rather than the sort of 10. Especially given we've got plenty of players who can play in the 10 as it comes. I mean, Jack Hinchwood is someone that can play basically anywhere, probably even goal. He'd probably still somehow score, knowing him. But so I think we've got like Ruta, Garuda, etc. Who can all sort of play in that position anyway, where Babis was being used as a sub. So yes, we have a slight concern, obviously, with Zimas, but I think with our next man up mentalities, we've shown we definitely have. I'm hoping anyway. Babis does the job of right. Well, I'll chip in with a few and put the pressure off Welbs a bit.
Yeah, 100%. And I've always said, like, what a fantastic person to learn from in Danny Welbeck when you're two Greek kids that have come to the Premier League, and I don't think there are many like current Premier League strikers that you would pick to have that experience of learning from. Obviously, injuries as well with Seamas. I'm sure Welbeck will be there with his arm around him and coaching him through that. A really lovely moment was that Lewis Dunk didn't leave Sumas's side for the whole sort of 5 minutes that he was down for. And that obviously goes to show the captain that Lewis Dunk is. I guess we'll move on now to talk about the Aston Villa game, because there is so much to unpack from this one. First of all, we did prematurely celebrate Lewis Dunk's 500 appearances last week, which wasn't the case. It is now confirmed, Andrew, that the Dunkey has played 500 games for the Albion, and I think is only 60 odd appearances off of the record for the club. I say only 60. That's what two more
It's
full
2 seasons, really. Yeah.
Hopefully, he's got that in him to get there. But yeah, I mean, just a word on our captain quickly, Andrew, just how much he's meant to us.
He is a wonderful captain. He is a wonderful servant for this club. He could have gone to any other club he wanted to if he really wanted to, but he has stayed put. He's dedicated himself to being loyal to the club and being the captain. You know, he's shown that he will try and look after everybody within the team, support them, you know, in their good times and bad times. You know, even he has his good times and bad times. But as a captain, you do have a responsibility to make sure that every player that's on the pitch with you is doing a job. And you can see him telling his fellow players that, you know, if things aren't going right, to basically, you know, sort it out. You know, we always see it when he's talking to Bart and everything else. Communication between them all is key. And it just, you know, he's a hero, to be perfectly honest. He's done everything for this club and he still remains to be solid. So yeah, he's hopefully he'll stay for a few more seasons to come yet before he actually does officially retire.
Yeah, exactly that. And it's weird to think that there will be one day a day of Brighton Hove Albion without Lewis Dunk. So my point has always been, even in amongst all the poorer performances over the last sort of 12 months from Dunkey, has to always been to keep that respect level up for him and to not write him off. I think he's shown so many times, obviously playing under different coaches, that he can adapt his style of play. Obviously, when he loses a yard of pace with his age, he has now adapted in a way where we're seeing the best of Lewis Dunk yet again. So are people wrong to write him off?
I mean, I think last season at times it was sort of hard to sort of try and say that he was playing well, because I mean, he didn't have a great season last season, but he'll tell you that himself. I'm pretty sure he has said himself that last season he was below standard. So, but you know, this season he seems to sort of lock down the partnership of him and JP, which is another thing which is crucial into getting clean sheets and stuff like that. Is that sort of consistency of, you know, knowing where everyone is. And I think it was in the Brighton podcast recently, Glenn Murray had said that, you know, like Dunkey sits with JP and Bart and Matt all on the coach when they travel, and which comes to what Fabian says about it's making connections on and off the pitch. You know, it's not sometimes as easy as just play out there for 90 minutes and you'll get used to each other. It's given that little bit of personal, I want to help you and you can help me, and etc. And he's obviously taught them chest pass as well, which he's a bit iconic for. But yeah, I mean, Dunkey, he's captain, leader, legend, isn't he? He's the epitomising what Brighton and Hove Albion's about, and as we've touched on earlier, he's the one that sometimes just picks people up and says this is the standard, and it's very much we're playing for Brighton, not for their name on the back, as they always will say. But yeah, absolutely lovely player, and you can't fault him. So, you know, it'll be weird to not have him here in probably 4-5 years, but I mean, if we can keep our recruitment and stuff like that, we've got a Jack Hinchelwood that in 4 or 5 years will probably be in a similar sort of leadership role. So I'm looking forward to the future as well as missing the future, if that makes sense, with Duncan not being there.
Yeah, of course. And don't worry, chat. I did see your shouts of Jan-Paul Van Hecker playing up front, which we'll get onto his brace and his possible hat trick in just a while. I mean, Andrew, against Villa, it started as we meant to go on, didn't it? Really, from picking up from the Forest game at the weekend. For that first 20 minutes against Villa, we were really excellent, weren't we?
We were unbelievable again, and and it just seems to, I don't know, we just seem to not. It's almost like we just took our foot off the gas, and just allowed them to get in control of the game, and it was just, but yeah, you've just got to. Every time I watch that game back, I just say to myself, how did that go so wrong in the end?
Yeah.
And it's what I would call, and even Fabian's turned around and said in previous questions that, we showed resilience, but we didn't. We just backed off, and we just allowed them to come at us. And it's just, two simple goals that we've given, away in that first half, and they've taken advantage of that, and put us on the back foot.
Yeah, exactly that. I did see run out shout of Weaver and Belabor, who were both great in his opinion. I certainly agree with you on the Belabor point. The Weaver at right back experiment for me is nearing its end. Don't get me wrong, he's fantastic in a challenge. He's great going forwards. He's had his opportunities to cross the ball, even had an opportunity a few weeks ago to get a shot on from Minter against Brentford. But he is the most dribbled past fullback in the Premier League at the moment, with I think 19 dribbles past, and that's how Aston Villa scored their first goal. And he was also made to look silly a few more times up against Matson, and I think who was on the other side? Buendia, Rogers, I want to say. I can't remember.
Rogers was starting. I think Buendia came on near the end, but yeah, Morgan
All
Rogers
I
definitely
know
played.
is that he looked a little bit silly. And Michael, yes, you're spot on. Joel Veltman is the best right back at the club. So if he's fit, I would have Veltman over Weaver any day of the week, and play Weaver in his natural position. But that's just me, Fabian. Don't take anything from me. I'm not a Premier League manager. Ian, what went wrong?
Yeah, it was definitely a weird one. I mean, I was sitting there, and one of the first things I said was, "This is definitely Believer's best game," and I think that seems to be quite sort of synonymous with every Brighton fan. He seemed to look like the player he was last season, and somehow winning the ball, even when it looked like he couldn't win the ball, he somehow did, which was what he was so good at last year. But and do you know what? I think there was probably times where we could have gone probably for the 3. I don't want to point players out, and I know we're talking about Matt's not that. I did think Gruder's decision making against Villa wasn't great. There was times where he was crossing it way too early or crossing it way too late and holding on for the ball a little bit too soon. And I know he's young and stuff like that, but I think there's got to be times where you've just got to sometimes hold them accountable and say, look, it's not been your best game. He stayed on probably a little bit longer than I would have personally done. But as you say, I'm not the Premier League manager at 31, so who am I to say? But yeah, no, we let some silly goals out, especially the Onana one, I think it was, when they went 3-2 up or whatever it was. It was so avoidable. I mean, we've been so good at defending set pieces recently that we almost had that level of it doesn't matter, but it looked like they just, whatever they did, it seemed to work.
Yeah, exactly that. The sticking point for me was I think we had a few warning signs of the long ball over the top to Ollie Watkins. And I think we were maybe a little bit too relaxed, given the form Ollie Watkins has been in, that he wasn't going to hurt us. The class is permanent. And Watkins showed that with the opportunity he had at the end of the first half. Obviously frustrating on our part that it was scored 2 minutes after the 6 minute added minutes. But I think to balance that out and to not be as biased, is that our first goal came from a corner that should have been a goal kick. So, these things do balance out in the end. But the main sticking point for me is the fact that we didn't recognise that threat. And Rodgers just thought, I can do it again, pop it over the top, bang, killer's instinct. Watkins got the confidence from that first goal, and that second goal was a confidence finish. He laced the ball through into the bottom corner, and there's not much we could have done about it. I do want to point out a really, really, really not pivotal moment because it was offside, but something that I thought, like, goodness me, that was an incredible save. Bart didn't know it was offside, but Ollie Watkins was through 1-on-1, and my word,
I originally thought he'd absolutely shanked it, but then they took that replay. I went, good, how he got that, I do not know. And do you know what? If it was deemed as onside, I think it would probably potentially get saved of the season. It was absolutely unbelievable. I mean, he literally got probably not even his nail on it. He somehow just kept it out, and I think that just sort of epitomises how well he's improved this season. So, I mean, Bart, if you're somehow listening to this, fair play to you, mate. You deserve your flowers.
Yeah, I'm sure Bart Verbruggen is listening to the Albion Obsessed podcast. I've heard that all of the Dutchies love the podcast. We'll talk about another save of the season contender in a little while. Frustratingly for us because it was against us. But Andrew, that Marlon goal to make it 4 was just an absolute mess. What did you make of it?
Since I've looked back on that, it's just, I think all 4 of their goals were complete avoidable. We've allowed Watkins in twice, coming towards us and breaking our hearts in that sense. And then down the other end, we've just, we've not defended. That's the problem. We've not defended anywhere near as good as we did in the previous game. And to not even, Bart's made a half decent save trying to get the ball out anyway. But then, of course, you leave. It's almost like it's a motorway within that 6-yard box because there's so many players in there, and it's just taken a toe poke by that Pacific player just to put it in a slightly different direction for it to go in, and it's just kind of and that's made it really, really difficult for us to try and come back and get something.
Yeah, exactly that, and that leads me on to my next point really well, Andrew. So thank you very much for that. The thing that's really, really irked me about it is the fact that it did take until Aston Villa scored their 4th goal for us to go, oh shit, we should probably play football now. Obviously, Van Hecke's second goal was an incredible finish, and it set up some insane end to the game. And obviously, the belief inside the stadium was that we would go on and find that 4th goal. But Ian, what do you make of those levels dropping and then players somehow finding it within them to then reach the levels where they need to get to make amends? Because I know consistency is really hard in this league, and I know we were playing against a really good team in Aston Villa, but those levels are there. Why can't we hit them, and why can't we be motivated to get them before we're 4-2 down?
It's such a strange one. I mean, it's like almost that Watkins goal, the first goal went in, and it just seems to be that we're a little bit stunned, both fans and players, and it seemed to be like Villa then sort of got into this is our home pitch almost, and it sort of almost gave that little. There wasn't anything to sort of sing for really, and then as you sort of touched on, they got that second goal just before half time, and it was after the allotted time and all that, and that can build frustration. But I mean, it's the best and worst time to concede, I guess, because it gave us technically should have given us a time to go and right. It's now 0-0 again. We need to start the second half like we did the first, and for whatever reason we didn't. We're not psychic. We don't know what he said in the dressing room, but it just seemed to be that we lacked. It almost looked like we had played in Europe, sort of. That this was our sort of third game in a week, and I think we've got to. It seems to always be 2-0 as well. Recently, that if it's 2-0, it seems to be the worst lead for us. So I think we've got to. We're not anywhere near what we want to be. I mean, positionally on the table, we're similar, but mentality, we need to show that level of, we're 2-0 up now. We're not going to give you a sniff of getting a game now, But I think going on to West Ham, we have to just right those wrongs against Villa and show that it was a blip rather than a habit we want to make of.
Exactly. So hopefully West Ham are playing claret and blue so it can get our anger going and we can carry on from where we left off against Villa. Something you mentioned there, Ian, about it feeling like they were playing on their home turf. And I know the club are doing something about this and I'm very thankful for it, but it can't come soon enough. Our away end is too good.
Huge.
It's way too good. And the limbs that it can generate are phenomenal, and it really irks me because clubs can come and be comfortable at our ground and sing their hearts out and all be together. We need to stick them into the corner. We need to get them gone, and generate more noise in our because I know this. I know our stadium can generate so much noise, and weirdly, I think it's louder when there's less people in it. When there's empty seats, I feel like that we get that chip on our shoulder and we go, okay, we really need to sing up for our boys here. And I know they announced the attendance as like 31,100 and something. There is not a chance in hell, right now, Albion, that there were 31,000 people in that stadium. Andrew, you were saying before the game that there was X amount of tickets still on the exchange.
There was.
So. We're in a good place. So why is that support not there?
When I saw the amount of tickets that were up for resale, I know it was a midweek game, but yet if you look at the away support that we take away, now I know people, sometimes can't go to home games during the week, and I totally get that, but it just seems to be that, to me, I don't understand how you can class that as being 31,000 for the game, because there were so many empty seats. And
I think
it just, I don't know how they calculate it. And if somebody wants to kind of put that to me, fair enough. I don't know whether it's calculated on the amount of season tickets that we've sold, and that's how they do it. And because if the seats aren't, when they put them up, I think when they put them up for resale, if they don't sell those seats on the resale, then technically the people that own those seats can then still turn up and come to the game if they change their mind. But and I think they do allocate it in that way.
Yeah, I think the thing for me, Ian, is the way we market things sometimes. Like as a season ticket holder, I get an email every home game about 4 days before the game. Joe, can you still make the game? And it's never, Joe, are you excited to go to the game? Are you ready to give your voice? Are you ready to show how much you care from the stands? It's always, if you can't make it, please send the ticket back to us so we can make more profit. I think that's the thing that really annoys me.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a weird. I mean, I don't know. I think we discussed it away end. I think it's, if plans are still right, I think we're going to sort of move it in between that sort of corner of the south and the west, and hopefully it's in that little corner there. So it doesn't seem, it'll still be the same amount, obviously, but it won't look as much, which is a mental battle, I guess, for away sides to deal with. But I mean, I'm not a season ticket holder. I go to the games when I can and etc. But it almost, like, especially with the atmosphere as well, I always just feel like it's not the North singing, the East and West just don't make any noise. I think I went to, I think it was Liverpool last season, the Carabao Cup. I think it was like 3-2. Somehow we got 2 goals. I don't know, and I was sitting in the West. And it was like a ghost. It was literally like I could have almost had a library beside me, and it's almost like we need to somehow figure out a way to make the atmosphere bigger there, as well as taking away from the away end. And whatever the plans are, I guess they need to figure that out, and maybe that can come up in fans forums or when they do the sort of meet the managers and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Maybe they can.
I think as well, like moving the away fans into that corner, and like where they are now, they're pretty on their own, to be honest. I know they've got the southwest corner next to them and then part of the east stand, but there is quite a big segregation there. So there's not much of an opportunity for back and forth between the away and the home fans. So I feel like if they move them into that corner, there would almost be like a primal instinct of us backing our opponents into the corner and like going at them. So I'm hoping that would generate more noise, but that's just my sort of psychological thoughts on that. But yeah, Brighton, I think you could do more to market things better, in my opinion. Anyway, we'll move on to then thinking about our player of the match. I think there is a clear winner. Actually, no. Before that, we'll talk about the chance, as I say, about the save of the season that was against us. Andrew, I'll come to you first because you was in the North stand. That Danny Welbeck header and that Bizot save, I thought that was in. Goodness me.
It's like I say, it happens so quickly, and to see the keeper react in that way, I actually thought it was quite close to him at one point. I thought he was literally in front of him, and you look back on it, and Danny has got into a position where the ball has literally just been pinged in. It's gone pinged off of his head, and that reaction save, if you know, it could have gone any side of that keeper, and I think it, because it was in front of him, it's that kind of, you know, if you were to ask that keeper how he saved that, he probably wouldn't even know himself. It's just a reaction, but it's kept Danny out, and it's kept our goal out, and it's, you know, and it's a shame because it was such a great opportunity.
How dare he ruin our fun? I think he should go and look at himself in the mirror and think about what he's done, because we're not angry, Mr. Bizot. We're just very disappointed.
It's another Dutch goalie, isn't it? We've got our goalie got ruined.
Is he Dutch?
I think so. Yeah, I think he was Dutch. I think they said he was Dutch. Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's not fair. Bart Verbruggen's the best Dutch keeper, so you can go
exactly.
There was an opportunity for Jan-Paul van Hekke to get his hat trick from a corner, I believe, and he headed it just wide. And I mean, a centre back scoring a brace. How much was you willing him to get that third?
Yeah, it's weird. It seems to be quite popular at the moment, the centre backs in the Prem getting braces. It seems to be a weird pattern that's going on. Yeah, I mean, you really want him to score, don't you? He's fantastic in the air, and we sort of said about Dunkey being a captain leader legend, but I mean, Van Hekke, I know the chant says it, but there is like no one better, is there? I mean, for someone to be side by side with Dunk and learn that leadership, you can't get a better person, and he's so passionate. So I think if he was to score the hat trick and in front of the away, in front of the North stand, I think he would have, the fans would have gone absolutely mental, and rightfully so. We'd have completed the comeback, and I feel like it could have been close to the noise that the Alexis McAllister penalty against United probably would have made. It would have been something probably quite similar, sheerly because he's so popular, and we'd completed a comeback again.
Yeah.
But, it weren't to be, and as we say, that save against Welbs, the header that Welbs did was fantastic anyway. I mean, the fact that he got so much of the movement and power on it really epitomizes what we've been saying in this podcast and saying how good he is. And it's the little things he does rather than necessarily the blistering pace or the loads of skills or the 30 goals a season. It's none of that. It's the little things that he does that makes him so effective against everyone. So
Yeah, exactly that. And, I think summed up as well by his finish against Brentford. I mean, there's not many players in world football that can have that kind of composure to set their foot like that and generate that sort of finish. Yeah, big up to Danny Welbeck because whilst we can't rely on him every game, he seems to come on and provide some sort of class, which we absolutely need. So as I said earlier, let's think about a player of the match. I'll come to you first, Andrew.
Ooh. I think. No, I think I'm actually going to go for our captain. I think he was. I'm going to go for our captain. He's done a lot of good, and it's still continuing. So yeah, man of the match, or player of
Exactly
the
that.
match. Yeah,
There you go.
gonna-
Yeah, Ian, who would you pick as your player of the match?
it's hard to not sort of look past JP. I mean, he sort of started the goals and ended with the goals, and yeah, I think ironically speaking, the 4 goals we conceded weren't really on our sort of central defenders. Really, I think it was set plays and stuff that made them happen. So I'm gonna say JP, but honourable mention does go to Belieber because he was sensational against Villa, and yeah, if he can play anything like that against West Ham, then I think discussions can start to be made about maybe him being maybe on the rise again.
Yeah, exactly that. The chat agree with you. Reinhardt saying got to be JP Van Hecker, and Michael saying JP as well. I'm going to continue your honourable mention and pick Carlos Baleba as my player of the match, just based on the improvement that we saw. As you say, there were moments where you really didn't back him to get the ball, but he came out on top. Some of his recovery challenges. And the way he sort of sat in front of Dunkey and Van Hecker at times to protect them, I thought was excellent. And I know that might sound counterintuitive in terms of the fact that we conceded 4 goals, but I think if you watch football with your eyes, you can see that Carlos Baleba was somewhat back to his best. And as you say, hopefully that can continue against West Ham. We've got 2 more matches with Carlos before he goes off to the AFCON. Of course, he's going to be wanting to pick up his form ahead of that as well to do well for Cameroon. Let's back the boy. Keep supporting him whilst we've got him, because I'm sure it won't be long until he's out the door. Carlos Baleba for me, man of the match. That then leaves us. Go on.
I think we also need to give Jack Hinchelwood another little mention. He came on as substitute, and he gets that little deflective, takes that ball down the left, literally, and I don't know whether that was a cross or whether that was he was intending to do that, and it gets that little nick off one of theirs and it goes in. He's only been on the pitch for a few minutes and he creates a goal.
It's funny you did say that because I mean, obviously when Simas got injured and we do pray he does get back quickly. And it was like, oh, Jack, you can hear the commentators going, Jack Hinchelwood's coming on. That seems a bit, and it was almost like the Brighton fans kind of seen went, yeah, but he can play up front. He did against Tottenham at the end of last season and it was all right. So, he's that sort of player that annoyingly, I guess, he's the perfect player for us. We can play him really anywhere. He seems to know how to do it. I don't know how he does it, but he seems to know how to play the position. And it's the best thing for us because managers can't really make a game plan with Jack Hinchelwood in mind because you don't know how to mark him, can you? So,
exactly
big up to Jack Hinchelwood, and maybe his 2 sub appearances recently might give him the warrant to start, especially when we've had a few games recently so he might get the nod.
Yeah, I hope so, because his energy, the way he presses, the way he sort of leads by example, as what is he now, 2021?
Yeah, I think he's 20 at the minute, but I think he turns
He's
21 this
just
season.
such a model professional. I think the fact that he can play so many positions is down to the number on his back, taken over from Pascal Gross. And
Yeah.
so in my opinion, going forward, every single utility player should be number 13. And we'll call it the Pascal Gross Hinshelwood number. Because they're both absolutely excellent. Let's then move on and look ahead to another home game against another team that play in claret and blue. What are you thinking, Andrew? Are you positive that we can bounce back, and give me a score prediction?
I've always got that positive feeling in the situation. I think after that little poor performance we've just seen, I think we will bounce back quite dramatically, and I think we might just have a bit of goal fest, and it would be quite nice to have one. And I think West Ham are vulnerable at times, even though they got a draw against Man United.
That's
I
nothing
think
special these days.
no, exactly. And I also think that they will, they will come. Of course, they will. Of course, they will try and break our defence, and they will try and break our, high line and stuff like that. Of course, they will, because we're trying to do it to them too. But I just think overall, I think we will come out, and I think we might get 3 goals out of that.
Beautiful. I would take that right now. Reinhardt is saying a 5-0 win. Baleba, Welbeck, and a Jan-Paul Van Hecke hat trick.
You'd love to see it, wouldn't you?
I want what you're drinking, sir.
That would take him up to what, 6 goals this season, wouldn't it? Something like that. If that else he was to come happen. So
chasing that golden boot.
Yeah, he'd only be just behind Welbeck at that point. So yeah,
exactly. Never know. Now, Ian, West Ham find themselves 18th in the Premier League with 12 points. What could possibly go wrong?
If I was to say teams like Brighton, that would seem synonymous to quite a few of us. But no, West Ham, they've, like you said there, Andrew, they are very much a vulnerable side defensively. I think they've conceded. Not sure if it's still the same now of against United, but they've conceded second most amount of goals per match this season. So I mean, we've really got to look at that and sort of say, we do have to go at them and show that, yeah, you're going to concede a few more now. This isn't a stat booster for you. It's going to be a stat booster for us. Although annoyingly, they have actually been better away from home this season than they have actually playing at the Olympic Stadium. Not that builds much of an atmosphere either, but we can't really talk about that. No. So, look, I'm kind of confident, but I'd always just have a slight doubt when it's West Ham, just because they have got players that can damage us. Bowen and Souček, most notably, but sort of signing wise, that Malik Diouf, I think we were in for him at one point. I don't know if it was had serious legs or not, but he's a player that we've got to watch, because he will be able to make a very, very, very good few crosses into the box, and we have to defend them maybe slightly better than we did against the previous team in claret and blue that played at the Amex. So yeah, it's an interesting one, but hopefully I'm going to say we win by. I'm not going to say exact score, but I'm going to say we win by 2.
Okay, well, I'll take that as it's your first appearance. I'll take a non-prediction.
Sit on the fence slightly.
At least we win by 2. Reinhardt saying I still owe him a beer. Find me before the West Ham game and I'll buy you one, mate. No problem. Michael saying, what do we think of the World Cup draw? I don't know if you follow England or Northern Ireland, Ian. Who do you
follow? I do follow England, don't worry. I don't mind it, Croatia, Panama, and Ghana, isn't it? So
yeah.
I mean, honestly, Panama we had 2018, didn't we?
We did.
They scored their first ever World Cup goal against us. Thanks for that, Panama.
Dr. England, we'll see you now.
Yeah, but I'm all right with that. I think it's not too big-headed to say if we don't win that group, it's a travesty. I think the only team really that can give them a slight game is Croatia, but they're not the Croatia that we faced in the 2018 World Cup. So,
No.
And we've obviously beaten them in the Euros since. So I think we've really got to get 9 points from 9. Should all go well.
Yeah,
and
considering how we qualified, I would back us to ease through that group.
Hopefully, we can recreate that. Is it the Pele image of him world in the World Cup that we always meme with Welbeck? Hopefully, we can actually genuinely recreate that.
Exactly. Welbeck will be there, and Welbeck will score the winning goal for England. Andrew, what are your thoughts on the World Cup? Are you excited for it?
It's always I haven't seen the draw, I must admit, but the World Cup in general is always a good it's a brilliant competition, and and I'll certainly be watching every country that's in it if I can, and and it's football. It's more football, and we love it, and it's it's a big part of what we do as football fans, and you support your nation, you watch other nations playing as well.
Exactly that. I just hope the kickoff times are something that are easy to do, because obviously it's in America, so that hopefully they can play at reasonable times for us English folk. But
if it's an evening game, I think we can kiss goodbye to sleep schedules, because I they tend to be like midnight, 12:30 sort of starts for us. So
I certainly will be up watching as many games as I possibly can. I absolutely adore the World Cup. Michael's saying Scotland got Brazil. Well, good luck to Brazil, obviously, because Scotland...
They faced them last time, didn't they? When they were in the World Cup, something like that. 86
possibly.
Or whatever it was.
Back when. Way back. Andrew would know. He was born back then. Before I completely miss the fact that I haven't given a prediction, I will just give a prediction now. I think we're going to win 3-1. I don't think the clean sheet thing is going to continue, unfortunately. I think that's dead in the pan now after we conceded 4 goals. But as you said, Ian, West Ham concede goals for fun. They've conceded 28 goals, and that is the second most in the Premier League this season. So I would back us to get a few. I just wish Graham Potter was still their manager.
Yeah, I mean, we are their bogey side, aren't we? I think they've only got the best of us once. So Dr. Brighton Wilson, weren't they? But
now you've said it. But I guess that just rounds words. Let me put my teeth in, Joe. Bloody hell. I guess that just about rounds off this week's show of the Albion Obsessed podcast. We will be back with you next week on Monday at 8 p.m. We've got a special guest returning in Chef Stephen Edwards, who will be talking to us about his new series called Bite Club. So we're very excited for that. Thank you to the chat for getting involved. It's always good to talk to you guys. A big thank you to Andrew and to Ian for joining me today. And I guess what remains for me to say is, wherever you may be, whenever you may be, we will see you next time. Take care. Bye-bye.
Albion.